Hey, so I was gonna do like a whole fancy intro where I talk about the history of video game cutscenes and their impact on the Kingdom Hearts story and how they've evolved over the years, but I figured when I watch a top 10 video, I usually just like click the right arrow until I get to the first entry, and you can read the title, you know what this is. I'm gonna rank my 10 favorite scenes, not the necessarily the best or the most iconic, but my personal favorite. So let's just get right into number 10. Hope you enjoy. Alright, what better way to start the list than by kinda cheating? I'm sort of factoring some gameplay elements into my evaluation of this particular cutscene, but it really is pretty much a playable cutscene. And cue all of the Kingdom Hearts detractors saying that's what most of the series is anyway. We're gonna start off with a scene from KH3 called The Light of the Past, which you might know better as the one where a hurricane of dead people's keyblades swoop in and save the day. Just on a purely superficial level, I think this scene is a total spectacle between the aforementioned Keyblade Cyclone and the massive swarm of murder bugs. It's like the most large-scale representation of light versus darkness we've seen in the series to date, and we get a lot of that stuff. Not to mention Ephemer just appearing in a haze of light being like, hey, I'm Jesus or something. Sora has no idea who this guy is or what's happening, but he's like, shit man, I'll take whatever I can get today. I'll take Yen Sid if need be. Sora hops on the conveniently conspicuous Starlight and proceeds to shred the Gnar in a button mashathon that leaves Xemnas' lasers feeling inadequate. The whole thing is visually stunning, but that's honestly not the best part. The scene managed to do something incredible. It justified the existence of a shit-ass, grindy, long-winded, in-game transaction-having gacha game, and I say that as someone who dumped a lot of time into it. You can tell Sora wants to ask Ephemer, who are you? What is all of this? To which Ephemer says, I guess you're not ready for this yet, but your great-great-grandparents are gonna hate it. I'm being a bit snarky and hyperbolic, obviously, but this really did make Union Cross worth it for me, and I'll tell you why. Well, first off, this was a name-in-game contest thing, a real Kurt Zisa for the new age. When I heard this was happening, I had no idea how they were going to pull it off, especially when it's like 350 Kurt Zisas. How can they make it not obnoxious, but also still feel consequential and worth it for the people who actually won?
Turn them into reaction commands.
Press triangle.
And maybe it sounds kind of stupid that Sora defeats a big bad monster tornado by throwing gamer tags at it, but if I may, can I just pitch to you why I think it's actually super brilliant? Because in my eyes, it really does mean more than a few hundred contest winners got their name shown for a few seconds. This is Kingdom Hearts 3 delivering on the core of the series ethos in the most meta, interactive, remarkable way. 5 magic words. My friends are my power. I guess it's 4 words, but one of them twice. I'm not good at math. We've seen Sora recite and live by these arc words for the past 17 years, whether he draws on the strength of his party members or summons in the gameplay sense or is supported by his allies during times of crisis and self-doubt as the story unfolds, Kingdom Hearts has always backed Sora's thesis. But The Light of the Past takes this a step further and makes it true of the player as well. This is your Hollow Bastion taking back the Keyblade moment. What better way to illustrate the concept than to have these real-life people, fans of the same video game series just like you, represent them via their tag and their union and literally use them as your source of power. The name and game contest was honestly a blessing in disguise because I think it's like the best thematic gameplay cohesiveness this series has to offer, and even across the medium, I'm hard-pressed to come up with another instance of something like this being pulled off in such remarkable fashion. Again, I know I kinda cheated with this one, I know there's very little actually said in the scene, but I really wanted to give it its due. From a big, boisterous, communal moment of triumph to a small, quiet, lonely moment of tragedy. You know, as I write this, the days are becoming shorter and the air is getting colder. Even though this has been a historically depressing summer in the macro scale, I'm still a little sad to leave it behind. You know, fall is fine and all, but I'm gonna miss the long days and the warm weather. But you know who really doesn't care for pumpkin spice and Black Friday deals? Roxas. I just talked about my friends or my power. What 5-word sequence from a Kingdom Hearts game has the exact opposite effect on morale? Say it with me, sad boys and girls. My summer vacation is over. A line I would always mutter to myself on muggy, late August nights from 2006 to 2018, and also the name of our next scene. Again, this is actually a quite short scene and there isn't a whole lot going on, but for me it's really more so about what it represents. I mentioned this in my world ranking entry for Twilight Town, but this is really the first time where the series says to one of its protagonists, it sucks to be you and there's nothing you can do about it. Roxas kicks and screams and tries bisecting a holographic Diz multiple times. He does not go gentle into that good night, but go he must all the same. I think for me, this is still the saddest scene in the series. I know some people have died or whatever, but the delivery and the anguish that turns into this quiet acceptance just really does it for me in the worst way possible. Especially initially amidst all the confusion and the original notion that Roxas is just a kid trying to enjoy the last week of summer, and he gets everything he knows stolen from him because he never really had it or knew any of it in the first place. And it's just like this twisted punchline to 7 days of prologue. Summer vacation coming to a close is like the end of the world to a kid in real life, and not the fun, squishy, chernoboggy kind. But it literally is the end of the world for Roxas, and again, as I mentioned in the KH2 World Rankings, this is never truly alleviated until the end of KH3. It's such a long time that this character had to stew in his lack of agency and autonomy. Even after the BBS trio, I still viewed Roxas as the most tragic character because he lived for about a year, worked for a company that didn't really care about him, and then found out that he was never supposed to be his own person. I mean, Terra got to be like 4 different people, the lucky guy. Ven gets to be 1,000 years old. Aqua has blue hair. And what does Roxas get? Forced assimilation by a big egg flower thing. Like, I hope it didn't hurt. We have no idea how painful the process of rejoining your somebody is. It might sting. At the very least, it stung for me when Roxas had to return from whence he came, and it honestly felt a bit like rubbing salt in the wound when Sora wakes up from his nap to his little theme song jumping around without a care in the world. Like, have some respect for the metaphorically dead, Sora. You're being loud and drunk at a funeral. And sure, on one hand, this scene isn't as tragic now that KH3 has happened and Roxas has been granted full personhood and presumably Destiny Island's dual citizenship, but on the other, thank fucking God, because it was so sad, and he deserves it. He's not a garbage character, and he's also very good at delivering mail. The Postal Service is important regardless of the universe you live in. Please vote, by the way. I'm not sure if I fully understood Master Xehanort until the very end, and I'll be completely honest with you guys, I really can't remember whether or not his true goal was transparent from earlier on in KH3 or the series. Like, I always knew he wanted to start another Keyblade War. I had assumed he was just doing it for the hell of it, like a morbid curiosity, if you will. And while he always came off as a big proponent of darkness, I mean, he literally gathered 13 people designated as darknesses, his final speech in Scala during a cutscene called Checkmate reveals that he does seem to genuinely want a good world, and that's a capital W, but with him at the helm. And don't get me wrong, he's still a twisted, veiny little old man. This plan involves a purge, a reset, which sounds pretty Old Testament to me. And he's going to be the sole guy in charge of the new world, so thoughtful intentions or not, it's gotta be stopped. It's basically big Light Yagami hours. And like, throw in some Thanos there too, I think. Right? I mean, I've never seen any of the Avengers movies, but that's like his whole thing, right? Balance. Xehanort wants to protect the capital W world from the tyranny of either light or darkness, so at the very least, this scene made Xehanort's motives more clear for me. I should say, this scene didn't sit 100% right with me the first time I saw it. I had conflicted feelings afterwards. Prior to KH3's release, I pondered what the end of Xehanort was going to look like, and it felt kind of like a rock and a hard place. On one hand, Xehanort has done terrible things and ruined a bunch of innocent people's lives, all in the pursuit of literally killing everyone and starting over as the universe's head honcho. He is a severely flawed individual. But on the other hand, can he be redeemed? I had come to understand Kingdom Hearts as a series that will basically give anyone a shot at redemption. If actual murderer Axel and creepy eugenicist Vexen can get another crack at things, who's to say Xehanort shouldn't? And so I was really puzzled by how KH3 would resolve this. I did not expect Xehanort to go out yelling "no" while shaking his fist at Sora as he descended into Kingdom Hearts hell. But he can't get away with it, right? I mean, he's got to be punished. So where does the Kingdom Hearts universe draw the line? Not here, apparently. My initial reaction was, oh, because you showed us a flashback of him being a little boy playing chess, I'm supposed to be okay with him floating off to heaven with Luke Skywalker. Hitler was also a little boy at one time. I finished KH3 feeling like Xehanort got off pretty easy, but as I was talking with my friend about it afterwards, I kinda came around on it. My friend pointed out that nobody really forgives Xehanort. He doesn't get to become part of the gang, and nobody except maybe Fire Lord Ozai thinks he's a good guy. The only one, or rather the only thing giving him a pass is the universe, or that capital W world again. And I mean, he does die. Whether he gets to chill in the final world now or whatever, he's reached his mortal end, and we have evidence of Xehanort being pretty afraid of the idea of dying, considering he Grand Theft bodied Terra specifically to avoid that. So in the end, I'm like, alright, you bald bastard, get out of here, run along, you little scamp. It confirmed my belief of what the prevailing ideology and worldview of the Kingdom Hearts universe is. Like, if the amorphous, intangible entity that is the universe of Kingdom Hearts had opinions and a general philosophy on how things should be. I think pretty much all fiction can fit into two camps, positive or negative, with Kingdom Hearts embracing the former. And I mean, maybe that's obvious, like of course the game with Mickey Mouse is going to have a worldview that generally treats its characters charitably. And I should clarify, I don't think it's always as cut and dry as this content is for children or families, so its worldview is positive, or this content is strictly for adults and teenage edgelords, so it's negative. If you want an example, the Seinfeld universe has a negative worldview and the Friends universe has a positive one. And again, it shouldn't have ever really been in doubt that the Kingdom Hearts universe is more Friends than Seinfeld, but I warmed on the idea of Xehanort receiving a moderately happy ending because that is consistent with what the series has been showing us for the better part of 2 decades. Xehanort morality stuff aside, the other major message conveyed in this scene that I really appreciate is one I've touched on before. It's really just 2 lines shared between Xehanort and Ericus. Xehanort says it's too late, and Ericus says, for us perhaps, but not for them. I'm a big fan of moments when the old guard realizes they kinda messed everything up and look to the new generation to set things right, and to echo my previously expressed sentiments, I wish that happened in the real world more often. Youthful energy and lack of experience is too often mistaken for ineptitude or inability to make a difference. Just because you're an old fart, that doesn't mean you know what's best and that you automatically deserve respect. It has to be earned, and people can clearly make it very far in life mistaking their longevity for wisdom. Again, you can look either inside or outside the PS4 for examples of that. Anyway, sprinkled on top of these heavy conversations are tons of great little moments like callbacks to the chess game, the sly old fox line, and even Kairi's grandma's story during Xehanort's speech. You've also got TVA getting a well-earned reunion with their father figure, and Xehanort saying to Sora, "Good job, Sonny, here, have a Keyblade and also a word that's original. I'm quite old, you see, goodbye!" And he floats off into heaven. The least contentious and flashy end to any of the main title's final bosses, but the one that sticks with me the most for sure. Is it wrong that I love when Kingdom Hearts does murder? I mean, am I crazy for that? Am I misremembering the original commercial from 2002? Kingdom Hearts, come for the Disney, stay for the homicide. You never know who will be murdered next. KH1 was actually pretty light on the murder. I mean, you got Clayton being crushed by a lizard, and like Oogie Boogie losing his vital organs, but I don't really count him as a person. Does that make me racist against bug bags? Call me old-fashioned, I guess, but I'm more likely to be really shaken by murder when it's happening to a human. And Chain of Memories ups the murder quotient in a major way, and if you've watched my video on Chain of Memories, you might recall I already talked about these magical moments in that project, so I'll try not to get too redundant here. I should also clarify, I don't really consider something like Larxene or Marluxia's deaths murder. I mean, that's more like trial by combat or self-defense, right? Like, Sora definitely killed them, but did he murder them? I mean, it's kind of like war, right? Did you think we'd be getting into the topic of is it murder if it's war in a regular Pat video? Because I certainly didn't. I suppose that's neither here nor there. What I'm getting at, of course, is the cutscene Vexen's End in Sora's side of Chain of Memories. Already noteworthy for being one of the few scenes in the game to take place outside of the blindingly white walls of Castle Oblivion, it's also noteworthy for Axel killing Vexen right in the face. This really is the first time we get something like this in the series, an unprompted and frankly pretty unwarranted taking of one's life, not preceded by any significant combat or struggle between the murderer and the murderee. I group this in with Zexion, Ericus, and briefly Kairi, I guess. Those are real, quality Disney game murders. A lot of the moments highlighted in this video have a lot to do with themes and arcs and big heavy stuff like that, but this one is really just my entry on the list dedicated to a moment that makes me go, wow, that was batshit crazy. I don't know how much it necessarily speaks to any larger ideas in the series, but it's really hilarious and disturbing how quickly and nonchalantly Axel disposes of Vexen. I mean, it's a crucial Axel scene for sure. It's at absolute minimum the second most heinous thing he does in the series, and honestly just one of the craziest too. Axel's turbulent motives and personality never get a more proper showcase than in Vexen's End. I have to share an excerpt from a write-up my friend did on this scene because the way he describes it is just very funny to me. Axel arrives with a yo, kills his coworker with a finger snap, and then claims to be under the pressure of dealing with a constant existential crisis. Like, it's hard to blame the guy, he has a lot going on in his head, and it's really, really awful. Sometimes you just gotta murder to get through the workday. If there is any bigger picture stuff to take away from this beyond an Axel character moment, I would say that this is a kick in the pants for both the player and Sora that the organization doesn't really mess around. It's one thing for a group of villains to plot your own demise, but when it becomes apparent that they'll gladly cannibalize each other if it means achieving their goals, that's how you know you got some real sickos on your hands. I should note, in the original GBA comm, Axel doesn't light Vexen on fire, he just teleports behind him and slashes him in the back with his chakram, which I somehow find a bit more gruesome. I don't know. Comment below, what's your favorite version of the murder? And I'm pretty sure in the Japanese version of the scene in Recom, Sora says to Axel, "What the hell are you people?" or at least something similar to that general notion. And if there's one moment in the series that warrants Sora just losing his cool and becoming that exasperated, I think this more than qualifies. I will say, while I still enjoy Axel, he sure isn't the same guy that he used to be, and I'm not 100% sold on the reasoning for that being a wealth of character development. I mean, we do get to see a lot more depth to him in 2 and Days, and we realize that there is more to him than sinister plots and homicide, but I don't know if that really erases the fact that he was kind of a horrible dude. dude. A horrible dude with a nice smile and cool hair and very fun lines, but still a horrible dude. And I guess it's kind of hard to have a character as devious as Chain of Memories Axel romping around with a cast of heroes, so he had to be toned down a bit, but I don't know, can't he just do one more murder for old time's sake? This scene is not necessarily iconic, nor would I think that anyone would consider it one of the best, but it's definitely a favorite of mine. You know Ansem? Well, Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, to be precise. Well, actually, Xehanort's Heartless, to be a bit more precise. And to be clear, that's the Heartless of Terra Xehanort, not Bald Xehanort. And just so there's no confusion, in this game in particular, it's the time-traveling heart of the Heartless of the guy who was the young guy possessed by the old guy. You know, that guy. But remember when he was just Ansem? Just like me, Ansem peaked in 2002. He was the guy pulling the strings, he was the original puppet master. He thought, why do all the heavy lifting when I can just let the cast of the Hocus Pocus villain Spelltacular at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida do it for me? And so they did. And he just shows up to collect at the end. I learned a lot from Ansem. Mainly, why work hard when you can work smart, and also to keep your shirt on unless you partake in dark CrossFit. Truth be told though, as much as I may have learned from him and as inadequate as he made me feel, I was never like a big Ansem SOD fan. I would argue in KH1 he's more interesting on paper than in practice. Literally, like reading about him by collecting his reports, it built up this mystique, this unmatchable reputation of this once beloved king who went crazy and doomed his world to fall into chaos. But really, once he's in the flesh, he's just a guy who loves the darkness and hates shirts. And so here's what I'm realizing about this character literally as I write this. He's always better as an idea than as a guy. The section dedicated to Ansem's personality on the KH Wiki is shorter than my attention span when writing scripts. He's smart and mean. Big deal. The meat and potatoes of the Ansem experience, though, is what he represents. Think about him in Chain of Memories. I mean, in reality, he's not even actually there. He's an idea or a concept. You could just say he's the darkness, and that's probably true, but he's also this symbol of regret and trauma and an insatiable lust for knowledge and power. If you didn't notice, the games after KH1 really beat you over the head with how Riku needs to rein him in and overcome these parts of Ansem that are lingering around. People can still be really bugged by shit that's no longer in their lives or even physically tangible anymore, even if that stuff was only around for a short time. I mean, we're veering dangerously close to pretentiousness and bad high school English paper territory here, I suppose, but Riku, like, kinda has PTSD. I don't think it's an unfair take, maybe it's a really obvious take, I've just never heard it phrased like that before. And I would wager it's not something the writers were thinking when they developed Riku's character, and that I'm also making a lot out of a video game intended for children, but well, welcome to the channel. I almost feel kind of bad for getting a bit fatigued by his arc sometimes, because clearly the guy just needs to work this stuff out. And that brings us to KH3, where he's pretty much shaken it off entirely, and that in turn brings us to the scene in question that I've somehow managed to bury about 600 words deep into the entry. It's More to Seek, the scene where Ansem dies. You know, again. But really, for super realsies this time, no take-backsies. This scene is the end of Ansem, obviously, but it's also the truest end to Riku's arc. All things considered, it's one of Riku's most important scenes in KH3, though that may be damning with faint praise. Ansem's like, hey, way to go, bud, you did it, you're stronger than darkness, and that is really strong. And Riku's like, I promised myself I wouldn't cry, but here we are. I'm not typically a fan of the what doesn't kill you makes you stronger messaging. Sometimes things try their best to kill you, and you manage to make it out alive, but you're still kind of fucked up, and dare I say, weakened by it. But in Riku's case, it applies, because make no mistake, Riku is not the badass he is at this point in the series if he denies Ansem back in the castle chapel in 2002. Although in that case, maybe Ansem just possesses him anyway, which is not cool, but the man is, as noted, very mean. Regardless, I wouldn't go so far as to say you can justify a person's trauma or call it worth it, so I guess it's better to say that you can find a silver lining to terrible things sometimes. An old lady once said you can always find a light even in the deepest darknesses. Like, yeah, shame about the whole possession thing, but if not for that, you'd probably still be a smarmy little man-child with stupid blue pants trying to cuck and or kill your best friend, so, you know, net positive, right? And even Riku's like, I mean, I never could have pulled off Dark Aura without your help, so yeah, I'm kinda gonna miss you. And I focused, excruciatingly so, on what this scene means to Riku, but it also means a lot to the player, especially one who's been playing these games for the majority of their life, aka me. I mean, look at the bookends on this thing. It just took me back to a time when this man was the bad guy to end all bad guys. Xehanort who? Battalion 13 what? Here's something I will put my stamp on, something that I feel much more comfortable asserting as having been done intentionally. Ansem is talking to me in this scene. I mean, you guys too, he's talking to the player.
What a journey you and I have had.
Yeah dude, it's been a hell of a ride. I met you at a time when the world was box TVs and blockbusters 17 whole years ago.
What? It is time to move on, boy.
I know, Kingdom Hearts is almost over, but I'm not ready to let it go. It's been this abstract concept for like most of teenagerdom and all of my young adulthood. I had my first real heartbreak and I literally thought, well, at least Kingdom Hearts 3 will be a thing someday, probably. Also, I played this game like 4 months prior to graduating college, so Ansem was really trying to push me out of the nest here.
There is more to seek. So go forth now and seek it.
Wow, I love being given dad advice by the villain. It's just really fun. You beat the darkness, you're stronger than the darkness. You beat me, you're stronger than me. You're about to beat Cage 3, but don't worry kids, there's more to seek. There's more games. Kingdom Hearts Melody and Memory hits the shelves November 11th, 2020. But also, yeah, like, go forth now and seek stuff, guys. That's the spice of life. That's what Ansem was all about, that tasty, tasty knowledge. I think it's just great. Conclusion of an arc, conclusion of our first true antagonist, a little meta moment, and some life advice all rolled into one. Kingdom Hearts is silly. It is an absurd concept, and I cannot earnestly fault anyone for viewing a single scene from it or even being confronted with the notion of its existence and summarily declaring it stupid, pulling your pants down, and taking your lunch money. The suggestion that a man might write extensively and passionately about this franchise may be sillier than the franchise itself, and don't even get me started on the steadily growing contingent of people who would voluntarily watch and listen to what this man has to say. They might be the silliest sillies of all. Now that that's out of the way, bro, when Sora, Donald, and Goofy closed the door with Riku and Mickey Mouse on the other side, I really felt that, bro. I've talked before about how even though Kingdom Hearts is a doofy video game series with Disney characters, it's not actually just for stupid babies. There are tons of moments in just the first game that I would argue lie in stark contrast to what you would expect when you hear travel to the Little Mermaid and Alice in Wonderland worlds with Donald Duck and Goofy on zany adventures. Like Destiny Islands getting sucked into an apocalyptic wormhole, or Riku stabbing Maleficent, or Sora stabbing himself. There's some oddly dark stuff happening in this so-called children's game. On top of that, how many movies in the Disney canon can you think of with a sad ending? Like, sure, we might kill a Bambi's mom or a Mufasa along the way, but things typically turn out happy in the end, right? Not so in Kingdom Hearts 1. Could you imagine if there weren't any games after this? It'd be kind of devastating. Everyone's separated with no clear way of reuniting after spending literally the entire game trying to do just that. Honestly, this moment is here primarily for the gut punch delivered in the moment where Sora and Kairi's hands break apart. If it was in Silence or some other song, maybe it wouldn't hit so hard, but that return of Simple and Clean, it just slams into the scene like a bat out of hell, and if you don't know what's coming, it's like, oof, you got me, Kingdom Hearts. Not to mention Mickey finally showing up, shirtlessly, fulfilling my child self's major quest throughout this game, as well as Riku making a purposeful sacrifice, locking himself on the dark side of the door and starting a long road to redemption. I also like to point to this scene specifically when people complain about the Keyblade not being special anymore. The Keyblade was never really special. People act like Sora was the chosen one and the only guy to ever use one in KH1, and then all the sequels ruined that. We come out of this game with 3 people having wielded this thing, with Mickey being our number 3. And unlike Riku and Sora trading off the Kingdom Key, Mickey's got his own, so the Keyblade was never a one-of-a-kind chosen weapon as far back as 2002. And yeah, I get it, these ones are still more special because they're tied to the realms and harder to get, and I understand your gripe if you think it's too easy to get your hands on one nowadays, but the thing was never as exclusive as some people think. Anyway, while the scene is called Closing the Door, it also encompasses the entire sequence with Kairi returning to Destiny Islands, which for me is an emotional peak of the series. She visits the secret place and the melancholy swells up to 100 when she finally sees Sora's wholesome vandalizing of the drawings they did as children. And then the tears. It didn't get me when I first saw it as a kid because little boys are just like kind of shitheads, but I'm like 99% sure that it would get me if I played it today with no memory of the series. The whole thing is just a beautiful, emotionally heavy sequence and a perfect, bittersweet ending to my favorite game. Here's how important this scene is. I couldn't get through all of the previous entries without referencing it, and I won't be able to get through the next 3 without referencing it again. It's the grand message of the series. If KH1 had a subtitle, it would be this.
My friends are my power.
Back before Sora was having his Keyblade stolen by Yozora, he was having it stolen by his best pal Riku. Another scene that was very much in contention for the list, The True Master, shows Sora losing not just the Keyblade, but Donald and Goofy, who at this point in the series still care more about their royal pension than their friendship. It's okay, they'll learn the lesson soon enough. And so now Sora meanders about the lower levels of Hollow Bastion, friendless and thus powerless. Or is he? Sora beat Facebook to the punch by about 2 years because he's a friend request machine. Sora's the kind of guy to send out the FR after meeting you at a party for like 2 minutes, or chatting with you while in line at the grocery store, or in this case quickly bonding with you after you both get totally owned by Riku. Sora loses 2 of his friends, but he makes another one as soon as he's back on his feet. And so even before he says the famous line, he's still making good on that oft-mentioned thesis. Because while his sword may be wooden, his heart is not. He also has a buffalo dog monster doing his fighting for him, which some might consider an upgrade. And so after a perfectly not too short but not too long sequence without DNG, Sora catches up with Riku in the entrance hall. Riku dons his dark pajamas for the first time, which frankly look very comfy, but Riku has had quite enough of Sora at this point. He's tried to kill him with logs, he's tried to kill him with an evil dark clone, this time he just goes for the jugular and shoots his inaugural dark frog at him. And make no mistake, Sora was ready to just kinda die here. He just got done saying his body might perish but his heart would survive. But Goofy's like, shit dude, this game's rated E for everyone, and he comes in clutch with the save. Donald just kinda sits there and takes an extra minute to come back over. Honestly, if you want to dunk on Donald, I'd point to him being useless here, not the overblown healing deficiencies. He's actually a great healer. Now Sora rebuts Riku's skepticism that he won't be able to fight without a weapon and says the titular line, apparently fully ready to fight with the wooden sword. Thankfully, unlike the Light of the Past, there is no story and gameplay integration here, as trying to beat Riku with just Donald and Goofy is potentially the worst thing imaginable. The Keyblade overhears the rousing speech, says later loser, and rejoins Sora. The tables are turned, Riku gets thoroughly trounced, and he runs away like a little idiot. It's a simple scene honestly, but it's the foundation for what the series is built on. I have already said it in all too many different ways. Sora displays courage and hope in the face of Riku's self-interested aspirations. Sora represents togetherness while Riku represents a self-inflicted loneliness, the darkness of being alone, as a young man might someday say. It really is just the series boiled down to its simplest but most poignant elements all in a 2-minute scene. It's the most critical scene of the first game by my estimation, and honestly the entire series. I just have a few more personal favorites that outrank it. Kingdom Hearts 3 was like the grand finale to my childhood. I've said it a million times, but I've been playing these games since they first released and I've been following them ever since. It's one thing to say from 2002 to 2019, but I think it's even more mind-blowing to say from kindergarten to my senior year of college. Like, it literally was my entire conscious childhood. And I mean, sure, I turned 18 4 years before KH3 came out, so I was an adult, but I was by no means a grown-up. I'm still not, quite frankly. So forgive me, feel free to pelt me with sharp, pointy shards of toxic masculinity when I admit that the ending sequence of KH3 got a single tear out of me. Where KH1 couldn't quite get the job done, KH3 got me 17 years later. And I think this accomplishment was definitely aided by me being at the point I was at in my life, but even so, this entire sequence is just a cascade of emotional payoffs, and I feel like I say that all the time, but story-wise, it's what Kingdom Hearts has always done best, at least in my eyes. You might call KH3 predictable, you kinda know when you pop it in your PS4 or your Xbox One for some reason that everything is pretty much going to work out in the end. The bad guys are going to get got, the good guys are going to reunite and be happy, and I pretty much agree with you. It was almost exactly what I expected as far as major plot points and character moments go, but that was fine. I was never concerned with the what of this game, I wanted to see the how. And this sequence is like something pulled directly from the head of a daydreaming Pat in pre-algebra class. I saw this what coming, but the how of it all was so overwhelming and satisfying. Everything is pretty standard for the first bit. You got Sora running off to save Kairi, you got the Disney Castle reunion, that's all fine and good. But then we get the Wayfinder trio at the makeshift grave. Like, Kingdom Hearts has officially and definitely killed a guy for real. A good guy. Ericus is not coming back. But this trio of friends, set adrift from each other for so long, finally get to honor their master's memory back in their home world where they grew up with each other. Also, Chirithy is here and Ven is 1,000. Jesus Christ, the clock tower scene. Not only are Lee and Xion looking fresh, but Isa shows up with ice cream no less, and now he's just part of the crew. He spent so long trying to pry Axel apart from Xion and Roxas, and finally he realizes there's plenty of room up here on this precarious ledge. Also, Hayner pens in a letter here. And this is not an original thought of mine, but would you look at that, it's the 7 wonders of Twilight Town. Oh look, Naminé gets to be in this game beyond just a floaty, faceless entity. Riku reaches out to her, reminiscent of the very first time we saw him reaching out to Sora during the acid trip opening set to Simple and Clean back in KH1. Now mind you, my eyes are still dry at this point. But then we hit the fucking beach. This is where it got me. This place is packed. Everyone's having a grand old time, playing frisbee, building sand donalds, looking for seashells. It's so picturesque. Everyone is together, everyone has a body and an identity to call their own, which we take for granted here in the real world, but that kind of thing is pretty hard to come by in the Kingdom Hearts universe. They've all been through so much, and they've more than earned this. Nothing could possibly go wrong. And then we pan over to the Paopu tree. In the industry, we split the beach scene into pre-tree and post-tree. Pre-tree is the KH2 side of things. Everyone's having fun on the beach, life is good. Post-tree is the KH1 side of things. Sora and Kairi are separated once again, and your heart is crying out for closure. Don't Think Twice is blaring away in the background as Sora once again drifts away, leaving Kairi alone on the island. And just like Xehanort's conclusion in this game, I was at first conflicted about how Sora was handled here. Why not just give them their moment together at the end? Why spoil such a feel-good ending and conclusion to this part of the saga with a total wrecking ball of a mood killer? We were so close to everyone being together at last, but we're one spiky head short. But I eventually warmed on it for a few reasons. One, and perhaps most cynically and controversially, I don't really care about the Sora and Kairi relationship specifically. They really haven't even spent that much time together throughout the series, so upon further examination, I'm not too sore about them being apart. If anything, I was more so bummed that he's just not with the group as a whole. Second, obviously Sora is not and never will be actually dead. Some people viewed this scene and their jaws dropped and they were like, oh my god, no, how could this happen? I think I was more like the gif of the blinking white guy thinking, oh, okay, well, that's certainly a choice. I wonder how they're going to bring him back. And I'm not claiming I'm like real big brain here. I think anyone who thinks about it for more than 5 seconds realizes Sora is gonna be returned safe and sound one way or another. Third, and most importantly, I've come to actually appreciate the choice. The entire first phase of this series was about Sora saving the people who desperately needed his help, and now those people get to return the favor. We know that Kairi is going to get to play a more active role in the process if Melody of Memory is anything to go by. We know Riku is looking into things courtesy of Remind, as well as Terra, Aqua, and Ven. It's a natural step for the next phase of the series. What happens when the savior needs to be saved? I don't know about you, but I can't wait to find out. So you ready for a weird take? I think blank points just might have ruined KH3 for some people. How? Because it's too good. And I highly doubt I'm going to break any new ground here. Blank Points is one of the few scenes that people actually know by name. It has a spot in the center of that best iconic favorite Venn diagram. There's been plenty of commentary on it already. There are big forum posts and whole videos dedicated to analyzing just this scene, and for the most part I haven't really engaged with any of that stuff because I just don't like putting myself in a position where I can accidentally steal a point and trick myself into thinking it's my own. So you might be getting a whole lot of the same old here, or maybe some new perspective, I really don't know. It's almost cheating to give Blank Points a spot here because it's so much longer and packs so much stuff into its like 12-minute runtime. It really is more like 4 scenes with an added Sora montage sprinkled on top. You got Terra and Xehanort, you've got Terranort and Brig featuring Ansem the Wise and Dienzo, you got Ansem the Wise and Aqua, and then you've got Sora right at the end of Cage 2. I can't believe I'm about to nitpick something in Blank Points here, but I wish they cut the gold on black text transitions between the scenes. The phrases never really added that much, and it would have been much cooler to just end and begin each scene with the character each scene has in common. Close up on Master Xehanort's eyes, zoom out from Terranort's eyes in Radiant Garden, close up on Ansem the Wise in Radiant Garden, zoom out from his eyes in the Dark World. They basically do exactly that, but with these little vague sayings in between. And as inept as I might seem at gameplay and story analysis, I am even more adept at understanding how games are actually made on a programming level, but maybe these little black screens are here to like give the game time to load the next environment. Is that a thing? I feel like I've heard of something like that being a thing, but I don't know. That's the only bad thing I have to say. The rest is perfection. In my KH game tier list video, I called 0.2 a hype man for KH3, but before we had 0.2, we had Blank Points. You can just feel the anticipation swirling around in the air. All of these tragedies and hardships are on this collision course toward finally being rectified. And all of those roads lead to the one guy who, through all of his connections, happens to be the answer to all of these problems. Cut to a moment we were left with roughly 5 years ago before the deluge of side games started. The moment that we thought was going to lead us into KH3. Here it is again, fleshed out as if to say, okay, but really guys, here it comes. 9 years from now, after a couple more side games. I have to wonder how far along Dream Drop Distance was as a concept when Blank Points was being made, because this scene always felt so genuine in imparting this feeling that the next time we'd be playing one of these games, we were going to be solving these problems and saving these characters. And in Dream Drop, you're kind of like getting ready to do that. It kills the momentum a bit. Blank Points is a better opening act for the grand finale of the Xehanort saga, and Dream Drop doesn't even come close to being as effective. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on for some reason, arbitrarily. I don't know, it's my channel. But even if we had nothing between Blank Points and KH3, as I stated at the beginning of this entry, I still think some people would be chilly or even chillier toward KH3 because how the hell do you fulfill this amount of hype? How do you make a whole game that delivers on the absolute goosebump factory that is this 12-minute behemoth of a moment for the series? I mean, I'm of the mind that KH3 still did a pretty good job, but I almost can't blame anyone for letting their imagination and expectations run wild after watching this. You've got these 7 characters across 4 games who all met an undeserved, crummy end, along with Ansem the Wise, who kinda deserved it, all pretty much speaking from beyond a figurative grave, calling out to their big-shoed common denominator. It's just this massive, heavy promise that the series is making to the player in this scene, and again, I can't even be mad at someone who feels like things didn't shake out the right way, because Blank Points is like too good for its own good. I talked a lot about the feeling and atmosphere stuff here over like the specific nuts and bolts, I guess because I'm an INFP, but I'm sure there's plenty of content out there that really deep dives on the details and connections. Like, I see it, I recognize the Terra, Riku, Xehanort, Ansem parallels. Terra says that Xehanort's gonna get shown the door, and he does. Sora shows him a big door, and he dies 10 years later in KH time, but 8 years ago in real world time. I see it, I understand it, I just don't have anything insightful to say about it beyond. It's good, I like. So let's end with a bad joke. What did Bragg say on payday?
Just gotta check.
Alright, so my choice for favorite scene in the series is definitely a hipster pick, probably not something that would land in most people's top 10 or 20 if they had to make a list of their own. It's actually a scene I've mentioned in passing before in a few videos, and it comes from Ven's story in Birth by Sleep. Any guesses?
Still needs a pity pearl.
No. It's a little scene called Memorize that takes place in Radiant Garden. It might be a puzzling pick, you could call it a filler or bottle scene, you could cut it from the game, and you probably wouldn't lose any understanding of the plot or characters. As far as series-wide ramifications, the only thing that would change is a brief exchange between Lee and Ven in the final hours of KH3. But I'm so glad this scene is here because it's one of the few times that a character gets to explain their philosophy and what motivates them. You can consider this like a more well-done, more impactful, and less laughable version of going to great lengths to explain why Mickey is shirtless at the end of KH1. In this case, sub out Mickey's exhibitionism and sub in Axel's seemingly nervous tick, the catchphrase to end all catchphrases, got it memorized. It never had to be explained, it could have just been brushed off with, well, Axel first shows up in Chain of Memories, so he's just playing on that game's whole memory theme. And in reality, that's probably the truest external explanation, but the game gave us this admittedly fan-servicey scene that sheds a little more light on it. And I should say, this scene specifically just hits close to home for me because I deeply identify with Lee's philosophy, as simply stated and hastily presented as it may be. Being remembered is the closest thing we have to immortality. The legacy you leave behind, to put it in Xehanortian terms, is like a vessel that can extend how long you're here. There's a quote from a book by David Eagleman, you may have heard it before. There are 3 deaths. The first is when the body ceases to function. The second is when the body is consigned to the grave. The third is that moment, sometime in the future, when your name is spoken for the last time. Now, luckily for Lee and most everyone in the Kingdom Hearts universe, it's real hard to die. There are a lot of loopholes in some form of afterlife, so there really isn't too much pressure to make sure everyone remembers you, but hey, this little dork with the frisbees doesn't know that yet. And I just enjoy how we're being presented with someone who has convictions beyond light good, darkness bad, or vice versa. My friends are my power is great, it's a good message, but that's the company line. And I think it's reflective of Lee's actions as Axel in the games to come, because bear in mind, you don't have to have a positive effect on someone for them to remember you. Being remembered is very much a neutral goal, and as such, Axel does some not so good but certainly memorable things, some of which I've discussed on this very list. Axel is always achieving his goal, but we get to see the way he goes about doing that change dramatically. And that's the big picture stuff, but on a more granular level, there's a lot of fun stuff going on here too. As soon as Bragg showed up in this game, I was just constantly excited by the prospect of getting to see any of the other organization members, but I had really only braced myself for the original 6. So getting to see Lee and Isa significantly younger and more snazzily dressed than we're used to was a total surprise for me. I mean, they literally just designed these guys for this one scene and a journal entry, but it was well worth it. I love how Lee chastises Ven for playing with a wooden sword and then tries to sell him on frisbees being an acceptable and somehow less mockable alternative. I love how Isa chastises Lee for basically existing. Not that they would be existing for much longer, but I digress. The scene plays especially well and maybe even a little more emotionally if you've played or watched 358 Days Over 2, because in that game you get to hear a bit about Lee and Isa's friendship prior to joining the organization, and we get to see a little slice of that here. And I could really just listen to them banter forever. In my Big KH3 podcast, my friend and I just quoted the scene to each other for 20 seconds because it's so, fittingly enough, memorable for us.
Everybody I
Yeah,
meet.
Lee's just dropping philosophy on everybody.
Inside people's memories, I can live forever.
I can live forever.
So good.
Well, I can tell you are. I really enjoy.
You ready? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ta-da! What do you think? We're just saying quotes. Not a whole lot.
You're just
Yeah.
jealous.
Oh, that's great.
In addition, the knowledge that Lee equates memory to immortality makes the implications of Shion's death in Days even more tragic. In this young Lee's eyes, Shion's death is essentially the most dramatic case of insult added to injury, and he wouldn't even be able to recognize it as it happened to his friend some 10 years later. On top of the Days relevance, I actually think it plays even better after KH3 because we have the added context of Lee and Isa searching the castle for the Subject X mentioned in the secret reports. I mean, in this game, they're probably just being general hooligans, but we can apply some new context to it now looking back. We've also got this sweet music track also composed specifically for this one scene in Nowhere Else called Eternal Moments, which I probably enjoy because it gives me Final Fantasy X vibes, like something that would play in a Sphere flashback or something. On one hand, I was a little bummed that we didn't actually get to play the sparring match between Ven and Lee, but on the other, it would have been kind of awkward and frankly rude to be thunder surging and fire dashing a young boy who fights with plastic discs. It is a little bizarre how we just fade to black during the fight, but I suppose a battle sequence would have thrown off the pacing of what I consider to be a perfect little scene. And to wrap it all up, Memorized comes at a point in the story where Ven is longing for a sense of friendship, and this encounter rejuvenates him, so really, at the end of the day, it still does all tie back into my friends are my power. So, you know.
Get it memorized.
Hey, thanks for watching. Sorry, again, this took so long to get out. Been settling into a new job, getting used to a new sleep schedule, so that's been great. Not gonna lie, I was also replaying Breath of the Wild, so that's usually what I was doing on my downtime. And then the Mario collection came out, so I had a 100% Mario Sunshine. Drop a like if you liked the video, hit subscribe if you're new. Let me know what scenes I snubbed. I'm gonna put a little honorable mention comment because I was gonna do like a little section at the beginning of the video, but I was recording and I was like, this is really long. I was gonna split this into 2 parts. I was actually gonna cut the first 5, but I was like, I like stuff that I wrote in the first half, so I'll just make it a big long video. Hopefully people will still want to watch it. My last video was the tier list in, I think that was July. And I said in that video that I was like around 320 something subscribers. I'm almost at 500 now. That's crazy. Thank you guys so much. I've literally just been here sitting around collecting dust, and people have just been flooding in, showing their love. So I really appreciate it. I don't have anything specific planned. So if anyone has an idea, you know what I really want. When does anyone know? When can I do polls? I want to do polls and let people vote on video topics. I don't know, like, I don't have that option. Could probably just, like, link a straw poll or something. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know, we'll see. Again, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there, and have a good one. I should also clarify, I don't really consider something like Marxine or Larlucia. Marxine or Larlucia.